at that time. They didn't understand those extreme high volume air.
So, but anyhow, we did have a good mission. That was a Kawasaki plant. I was over there some months ago, and I have a lot of friends in Japan now, and they were showing me, there's the building you hit. I said, no, we did more than that to it, and they did. They had to rebuild it, but that was the best mission we had. Yeah. And then the next mission we had was Tokyo. Every target had a number. The Nakajima aircraft plant on the west edge of Tokyo, Musashino, was target number 357. Now, everybody, the veterans there, knew that that was a tough target. So when you're in the briefing and you're sitting there, and they say the target, maybe we have a Tuesday briefing for a Wednesday mission, target number 357. And you don't want to, start throwing up out of fear or something, because that was a bad one. But you kind of look and roll your eyes, and, you try to take it in stride. But that was a tough target because it was so critical to them. They had a lot of anti-aircraft fire down below, concentrated, and they knew where we were coming, apparently. I don't know who, but anyhow, that's where we went in and made it far inland. I think there was a total of maybe 75 planes that started, maybe malfunctions. I'm going to use the number 67 B-29s on January 27th, 1945, target 357, Musashino. And so we went in, and boy, after we hit inland there were a lot of fighter attacks and flak, which was totally, because we were told at the briefing, at your altitude tomorrow at 30,000 feet, maybe 32, really, you want to get up there, and there'll be no flak or very light flak, not an aircraft fire, and no fighters at your altitude. So you believe that because you want to. But when you get up there, I can tell you, when we hit the coast, came over Hamamatsu, the city, and pretty far west, so we could make that turn and still get in there. And we were not the lead plane, and we were flying on the right side. But anyhow, there were fighters up there, which was contrary, and some of them were up at our altitude. Then we went in and made the turn. We were heading for Tokyo target, and we were on course. And you feel good then because our airspeed with that wind, say 180 mile an hour, just about directly behind you, gave you a ground speed. And at that altitude and the temperature and everything, we were doing about 450 miles an hour. That's pretty good for a prop plane. And it made you feel good, And inside it was temperature controlled, pressurized, 70 degrees, man, just like California on a good day, And but as we moved inland, and there were intense fighters. Subsequent to that, the reports really came out from all the reports that they had over 300 fighters up that day, most they ever had. I'm not talking about the kamikaze guys later where they may have had 500. Right. But for fighter opposition, they had over 300 up, and because we were doing, a group come in here, and another group come in here, and another group, they could actually come in, go through the formation, come up and hit and, wrap around. And it was reported that there were approximately 900 fighter attacks on our group of planes over that target that day. And we didn't have time to keep score, because then when we were on the bomb run and the target up ahead, and 70 degrees in the plane, and I had just checked the outside temperature on my dial, it was 58 below. And then there were two fighters coming in from about 11 o'clock rolling into us. And when they're aiming directly at you, the first thing you think is a ramming. That was common practice for a fighter to ram into a 29 plane. And there was much ramming done over there, and many planes knocked down.
So that was almost a kamikaze feat right there in the air.
No, well, I guess
we didn't call it that.
Yeah, kamikaze was more a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
That they put the bandage on their head and they didn't drink a sake and said goodbye, and didn't have enough fuel to really train them. So, no, the difference. The end result was the same normally, but I have known kamikaze people, the rammers over there. One of them survived too, and their mission in life was to come in about 10 feet over the nose of the plane, so clear their fuselage, come back, and with the left wing hit the rudder on a B-29, spin off of that, and then bail out. some people over there, the Japanese pilots, actually succeeded doing that. Yeah. One for two, and we've got pictures of him, and friends of mine in Japan now are writing books and putting them into English about B-29s and fighter opposition and getting both views. And I've mixed with a lot of, most of their fighter pilots now are dead. Two reasons: they were shot down. They lost about 400 off of the Saipan thing there, the turkey shoot. And but today, because they were fighting in China, say in the late 30s, and they lost people over there, and so there are very few fighters left over there because their average age is probably 6 or 7 years older than us, and we're now in the 80 to 85 bracket, so they're about 86 to 90 some. There aren't many left, but I've been with some of them.
I saw on your website, I did go on your website, and I see you have some pictures with some of them. One of them you're playing golf with. I thought that was...
Saburo Sakai.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, he was my hero. And so when I decided to go back over there and work through Ambassador Mansfield, I wanted to go back over because I was in bad shape mentally. And I thought maybe, and I was having continuous nightmares after I got home. And it was disruptive to the family. And the nightmares were pretty common. 3, I'd be falling through space and I'm screaming and I'm reaching out, trying to get something to hold on to stop. Probably the free fall, you know, if I fell 24,000 feet. And that was one, and a lot of noise and screaming, but I'd stand back. And another one was fire, and having been through the March 10th early morning fire raid when General LeMay changed the strategy and said to heck with this high altitude stuff, and we weren't doing too well from up there. We're going to bring them in low, and I obviously was on the ground already up in Tokyo, and I wasn't in on the briefing. I'd love to have been there. But so one night on March 10th, about 0100 hours there, I heard these multi-engine planes coming over, and I'm in my cage, black cage, you're cold, you have one blanket, you're hurting, you're covered with sores, and all of a sudden I said, where did the Japanese get all of these multi-engine? And then the bombs started to drop. And of course I didn't know about the change in strategy. And I would say that was the most frightening night of my life ever, to be there. And the city burned around us. And even though the target was on the east side of Tokyo, on the other side of the Sumida River, Sumida, and that's where the aiming point was for the pathfinders and so forth. But as the firestorm started, there was some winds that night that I can remember. Maybe it was 20 miles an hour, but in that old wooden cage where I was and in that old stables, you know, we creaked. That's what I wanted to say. Maybe it was my bones that were creaking. But anyhow, sitting there, and then this started, and then the bombs, and then the fire, and these pathfinders put bombs here and here. You fellows behind, drop them in there. And the Japanese really wanted to get those pathfinders when they learned it, so that if the plot wasn't planned, you know, so there were many. Those pathfinders were brave guys, they were great flyers, and they took heavy losses. But I didn't know all that while I was sitting in the cage, you know. Right. And so that's where I was through that fire, and God, the wind must have gotten up to 100 miles an hour. And I didn't have any windows in my cage, but up in the back there was a little 2 feet by 8 inches, and there was a black cloth hanging down, so we could never see anything. But that night, when the firestorm started and the wind got up, then that black cloth raised, and for the first time I could see outside. And to see the sky red, and to hear the noise, and to feel the heat, and the smoke came in, and the end of the stable where I was burned off, and the roof started on fire. The guards were smart. They just handcuffed my feet and my hands, and I'm there, you know, tied up in the corner. They left for their own safety. Can't fault them for that. And so somebody put out that fire up on top. It was sand. I don't know who did it. And the door was never replaced, but that's how close I thought. I never thought I'd get through that night. I think a raid lasted about 2 hours and a half, but the actual fire continued and smoke, and that was my very scary night.
You got on the ground. You were shot down over Tokyo.
Yeah, we were actually hit before